Chilly here with Sirius Dallas Moon hour, Venus day. Venus, 23 degrees, Virgo. Moon, 26 degrees, Aquarius. Saturn in the 8th house, Mars, 22 in co-present, in Gemini, co-present with the midheaven, 11 degrees, Gemini. Mercury, still 18 degrees, soon will be moving to the 19 degree of Cancer. The moon is beginning to pre-eclipse. Now, Rahu and Ketu is in Regulus, and Rahu and Ketu are 2 meters from moving to the Leo Aquarius axis, where Rahu will already be co-present by sign with Pluto. The more they join, the more Lilith joins them. This is where I said 2030 Lilith's already gonna be closer to Ketu. But before she goes through Beta Persei with the 2 malefics that rule the 2 outer planets, and the world will have to appease Beta Persei. Yeah. What is appease Beta Persei? Even people that are recovering from sexual boundary violation are still at the tip of the iceberg of appeasing Beta Persei. For example, today I bought things at the grocery store. Along the line of production, Honorin Senna. Whether the products are vegan or not. Just think about the fact that rape is not currency. Rape is not water. Definitely not heart health. It's not God, it's not religion, it's not grounding, it's not a solid ground. Now, yeah. Amazing. No, it's okay. Basil came twice with Denabalgadi. I don't know why. Usually it's Measuram, but when I did the talisman, came up Basil. Is it because Saturn is ruled by Mars? Because it's about setting, Basil is about setting boundaries. Measuram is about decreasing, let's say, if people are hypersexualized, Measuram is supposed to help decreasing that. But Basil is about setting clear boundaries, a very scorpionic herb, which is surprising, but Pluto is co-present. So I'm just that I was doing Denabalgadi work and Basil comes up, where I would expect Measuram. Another thing to think about, as a Pisces ascendant, to me is very clear because I have Aquarius in the 12th house, and 12th house is enclosed spaces. Aquarius is air, is actually, if we think about, for example, the concept of open air prison, is very Aquarian. Now, here is something that the world is absolutely not ready for. And it had time to be ready for. People with trauma are not compatible with spaces that would arise agoraphobia or claustrophobia. It's not about exposure, it's about architecture that is compatible. It's important to prevent the other significations of Pluto, which is not just nuclear, but how does it call, microplasmic, I don't, that type of magma that is infused with gas and is permeable to literally everything. There was such an eruption in 79 where Pluto was 18 degrees Libra. My two important encounters with 79 born people was one around COVID and the other one around 2007. I was there erupting volcano. It just squared. My moon was applying to square it, so I don't know why, but it brought up um, deeply emotional things. The first was about mothering and caregiving. The other one was about motherlands and the abuse of infants. Um, and secret societies, of course, were involved in both. Back then, it was the murder of Madeleine. COVID was like, COVID, and it lasted to the Israel-Palestine war, the Ukraine war. Um, Esoteric traditions, the energy infrastructure, the oil investments. Um, so just think about the fact that, I just throw something out there. How should I say that? If we take into account, let's say, MK Ultra and MK Ultra, which is also about false convictions, almost nobody in jail is supposed to be in a space that is incompatible with claustrophobia and agoraphobia if we want to alleviate risk of violence also outside of jail. Norwegian got it. Norway got it, at least to some degree. I just think about COVID and the lockdowns and how people with claustrophobia and agoraphobia could not be in a lockdown. Today I was just casually thinking, I went to the grocery store and there was a big line, so I was sitting. And I was sitting because I said most of us are probably with disability, so there's no point to say, oh, I have a disability card because because most of us probably have, so I was just sitting. And then I was thinking about, wait a second, I mean, the where people get their rights, it's not a structure compatible for claustrophobic or agoraphobic people. So maybe one person in a family get their rights, and then they did basically the state did something to try to collect the money from people that have supposedly wrongfully claimed. And I'm like, that's like somebody coming to be a collector when they owe money to the people. So just think about the fact that hospitals are not compatible with claustrophobic and agoraphobic people. Now, what does it mean not compatible? It means that the person might have a panic attack. They can go through freeze, fawn, but also attack. The attack here is the type of attack that can lift the truck up. Just think about it. Soldiers that were trained to shoot, grab the weapon, shoot, grab the weapon, shoot, grab the weapon, shoot, grab the weapon. Okay? We're not talking mass shooting here. We're talking something that is a Krakatoa of mass shooting, and that's at the very minimum. Now, another thing about trauma is that mostly people cannot even speak about it. So not only they are not able to call for help, the help is not compatible to them. They keep silent, and then what? Boom! that was a Medorodam version of the boom. Now, if that's not enough, Pluto rules the taboo things around sexuality. Aquarius has to do with communities. So think about communities that have been abusing power. And in that sense, I mean, basically harming towards the youth. And this one is going to be mainly amongst, I think, soldiers and boys, because Saturn is still in Aries. So the abuse of the boys in secret societies, the Saturn also rules marriage, so that the secret societies, young boys' marriage, I'm just a messenger. Um, um, Occult and esoteric traditions that have been infused with those things. Now you say, but Chile, but all occult? No, not all occult. We actually have people that learned esoterics from YouTube and began to refine their own structures without sacrificing the upper for the lower, or the lower for the upper. When I do, I don't know, Denebalgadi talisman, I do it with a full chakra alignment, meaning not the initiation rites of. So is the difference between a medicine and a medicine but with petroleum. Okay, you can pack a herb and say it's patented, but then if you put some neurotoxin there, yeah, the power of industrial conglomerate, but particularly the one that is not so centralized, or the head of decentralized organizations, as weird as it sounds, because it's usually like the godhead, and um, it's not personality cult per se, but it's kind of like the union of minds, some sort of addressing the union of minds, and the sovereignty of minds within union of minds, patents as well, perhaps. Um, the union of minds during revolutionary times, the gas and oil industry funding of civil wars, because Uranus is in Gemini. So I look at both Uranus and Saturn with this one, because I simply want to leave out possible interpretations. Is a set of eclipses that is going to be quite impressive. Um, so we begin this set of eclipses already on the 12th of August. Although I think Ketu would still be retrogress, we already begin that set of eclipses. The moon right now is triggering around the Beta Persei point. Now we already had an eclipse. I think, I don't remember if it was a lunar or a solar with Aquarius, where we had a 28 degrees Aquarius. Aquarius can also be about friendship, because it is something that is decentralized and communal. So it can be the friendship aspect of communities. Um, I can give you a conversation from the ether, and I was battling something that was causing injustice, either to the way that I'm being seen or to the solar and lunar. And and then I was trying to kind of like move away, and then somebody said it was a feminine energy, and it said, "Chile, we are fighting." And it was very amiable. It was not coming. It didn't even say we are arguing. It said we are fighting, and it was. And the voice was so amiable that I was like, why are we fighting? But it wasn't my energy did not experience it at asking why are we fighting, because I was like, not, I was just like combating the injustice and moving on. And then it was like amiably reminding us that we are fighting, and I'm like, but why are we fighting? So there was something very, very open-hearted about it, with the juxtaposition that was very Aquarian. So open-hearted would be Leo, and then the Aquarian weirdness. Which is like, wait a second, that we are still fighting. Don't leave me, we're still fighting. um, it, naturally, Aquarius is the farthest from the sun. The Saturn-Mars combination ruling over Pluto is, of course, another thing to think about with Mars 22 now. Somebody said, "Hey, but you want, how should I say, but you were ordering or commanding the murders, like only of those who rape, of those who activate those people to rape, like not of people who don't rape or who don't violate, like only to murder to murder the pattern of murder or violation or." and this, And then when there's a secret society that is found that the foundation is about rape from infanthood, it, it creates a friction, because this was perceived to be the source of power. And then there's a very amiable foundation. It's like, okay, we don't need that anymore. And then people invested into it, they developed techniques and so on. Like I said, a very Aquarian relation or a very Aquarian conversation that the moon is triggering now. Um, and then, of course, the people that are spiritually, emotionally, physically, neurologically, culturally related. I remember around, let's say around the Me Too, where there was a complete, not just structural change, but also having to reflect back to to the culture, to my use of culture, and somebody, I think, I don't remember what colleague said that, talked about the row with Pluto as purification. And I love this notion, because in evolutionary astrology Pluto would be associated with basically evolving from, and one way to see it is purifying from, um, impunities, so that structure of the jails will have to be compatible for all people, because we're going to be purifying from impunities. Ketu Regulus Raul in Denabalgiri sign is going to put some people in jail, and that jail is going to have to be compatible for all. The meaning of people being in jail right now is about purifying the structure, or purifying the punitive structure, because the core offense was rape and infanthood, and so the punitive structure cannot be purifying from violence without the right to exit violence, and the structure has to architectonically and cosmologically be compatible. Jail is supposed to be a structure where even if a person is falsely imprisoned, they're still more purified in essence than violated, or they're purified rather than violated. This is why jails and hospitals are so associated. Um, Another thing to think about is happiness. Heart alignment and happiness. I was answering something to the in regarding to Dan Malgiri. A person that doesn't experience happiness could experience mania. A person who was only told that they are manic whenever they were having any approximate to happiness and didn't know happiness, how should I say that? There's something coming about. How should I say it? Dana Balgiri should not violate happiness, is what I'm saying, in the sense that and happiness is not happiness about abuse or anything like that. I'm talking about authentic happiness, which is heart alignment. There's something profound regarding that. For anybody that needs to hear that anything that is manic depression could be a result of infanthood violation that prevented the ability to feel happy. And think about love that is actually loving joy and happiness. Think about Saturn, Jupiter. Jupiter is joy, Saturn is a structure. So, in essence, even jail and hospital should be a structure that brings joy and happiness and retrieves it to the heart of the person, because crime was conducted either as self-harm or as harm to others due to the lack of ability to feel love that is actually loving or happiness that is authentic. Um, uh, for example, people that defend themselves from rape and are called a killjoy. Um, Saturn Aries is the head of a structure, or the decentralized um, head of. So it can be kind of like the deep state, if that makes sense. Think about the decentralized structure that is the head of. So something regarding that. I'm getting advertisement about ceasing to breathe in sleep. I had a friend that had that, and they had to sleep with kind of stuff that would constantly help them to breathe. It was, I think, associated with something to do with the heart. Um, Something to do with sleep, the right to sleep, the right to have a regulated nervous system. There's something really negating the concept, negating the legitimacy of torture from the core. So anything MK often, MK Ultra, paper clippy, and the oil infrastructure, and even nuclear infrastructure regarding that, can't really sustain. It's about purifying from that. Um, like I said, Pluto on the closing agreement with Aries could be nuking entire humanity, or it can be natural disaster that can cause that. Because it's at the juncture of Aries and Taurus, and Chiron ingressed into Taurus. We had the big volcanic eruptions. We had the big earthquakes that are still lasting, because Chiron is in the sign of fixed Earth. But Aries is something you probably noticed that for my Deneb Algety talismanic episode, In the other channel, I wrote that the caption was Aries. It's not by mistake. The moon was basically sextile in Aries. Um, if I think about the stuff preceding this, so he had the series Ares on Netflix, and indeed it's an excellent launch time because Neptune is in Aries. Neptune is movies. Aries has to do with Ares, and we saw how the elite was worshipping Ares. The Occult Observer did a breakdown of that. The series is in Dutch, and it's also the Aries return for Volk for Dutch East India. Will this eclipse highly involve Netherlands? It's in the 8th house of Netherlands. Sorry, Rahu in the 8th house of Netherlands, and the eclipse is in the 2nd house of Netherlands. I think the more Leo placements closer to Regulus are going to be highly affected. Then, of course, the other part of the fixed axis, naturally Beta Persei squaring that eclipse. So, and because Beta Persei is dead bodies upon dead bodies. Aquarius is wealth redistribution, so it's about Aquarius is more about making abuse not economic. So it's about the big loss of the abusers, those that thought to gain power, because Pluto's power are going to lose power, but there's also nuclear power. Is it going to be like a Samson thing? I don't know. Pluto's in the 5th house for Israel, so I don't. But the Saturn in the 7th. It means that certain people can see can see Samson as a form of Samson operations. Basically, the premise that Israel could drop an A-bomb on the entire Earth. And then some people say that Argentina is somehow exempt. I don't know. That if it's entire Earth, it doesn't make sense that anybody would be exempt from, let's say, the nuclear rain. And in that case, I'd rather be on the pinpoint of the nuke rather than in Argentina. But I remember one day I had a friend in university, actually not in my department. We were volunteering together, and it was actually not really volunteering, it's volunteering for grants. So basically he set me down and said, if there is an A-bomb exploding, you want to be within this range, you don't want to be within that range. And he probably had a good reason for saying that. So that was a person that was only in their Uranus square, sitting me down and kind of like, and giving me the instruction of basically where's the best place, most efficient place to die without suffering at case of nuclear eruption, but it's also volcanic eruption. There are types of volcanic eruption where the proximity can bring immediate death, which is something that I learned about yesterday, looking at the 79 volcanic eruption. that was microplasmic. It's kind of like an elaborated name, which was combination of rock and gas. Nothing more combination of rock and gas than Pluto, with Saturn in Aries rocks and Uranus being gas, trine in Pluto. So it's like, oh, I may have delineated the type of volcanic eruption. Again, 79 we had Neptune in the world degree, another world degree, Neptune in the galactic center. Uranus was in Scorpio, at the end of Scorpio. Pluto was around 18 degrees of Libra. I'm pretty damn sure it was the 18 degrees Libra. There's no, you don't even need to be a profound astrologist. just on one thing about the 18 degree, and you know it can be no other degree. So that was as per the outer planets. Of course, a mythical something. Scorpio is associated with the core, Uranus Scorpio, the core of the earth exploding, or the water of the well. In that case, it's the liquid in the core of the volcano. Erupts. And it can be depth of inflammation and rage that was kind of like a bottleneck, but the neck is a volcanic neck of the volcanic mountain, and so Emma saying there's going to be a volcanic eruption with the eclipse. Well, the adjacency, the square with Chiron. No, Chiron actually is Chiron a point of Thales here. Yes, Chiron is a point of Thales here. So volcanic eruption can be the remediation. When volcanic eruption is the remediation, it can mean immediate death. Are there going to be dead bodies upon dead bodies? Not by the merit of beta per se, but by the merit of wealth redistribution and making it uneconomic to rape, because it's rape of infants. It's making it uneconomic for the deep state to rape, if that makes sense. Like I said, the world is preparing for Lilith with Mars and Saturn ruling over Pluto and Neptune around Beta Persei in 2030. It's not, and closer to Keto, which means Keto is the purge. Okay, if like I ran into that, and like it's Mars and Saturn. It is difficult. It's not an out. It rules over two outer planets. Before between the First and Second World War, we had two outer planets around Beta Persei, and then wait a second. It was before that. It was around before the birth of Hitler. So it was what? It was the 30 Years' War. I don't know. Like I don't know if I want to look. Now we have, it's kind of like, oh, it's the ruler of both of them. It's adjoining Aries, Aquarius, and Taurus, alongside with Libra and Scorpio and Capricorn by the merit of the rulers, and then with Lilith, which is, like I said, that the next war is going to be about. It's not even a meter related thing. Let me give you a tantric teaching. and Efrat Wolfson teaching. Sexual trauma, not about just rape or stuff like that. Not even about the sexual trauma of programming, where people cause misplaced arousal. So basically, misplaced arousal is about decreasing, basically the pain when it comes to rape, but also the psychological one. It's supposed to be having people being how should I say that? Somebody once said something was very cruel, but it was about the quoting Stalin that said, if somebody rapes you, then at least you enjoy that. And I don't know if they were saying that about themselves, but this was something to do with the programming of the infants. But sexual trauma is also where a person is not so ready, even though they're very excited. Like, this is also sexual trauma. This can also cause the yeast inflammation and stuff like that. So now I want everybody to get used to that new definition, because the next war is going to be about that level of accuracy when it comes to willing consent. The world is not ready. Just think about what happens to these infants when they purge all of those rapey patterns all the way to the Efrat Wolfson definition. Including all the religions, the worldviews, the trade, the disciples, the esoteric traditions. Now, medically, this is true because it's still causing. Now, with the let's say the secret societies, they would curse themselves, some of them. And just imagine a bunch of people saying, hey, we're no longer willing to curse ourselves. We're no longer willing to serve. Those things were harm since infanthood that we never consented to. Okay, think about the Pope saying that, for example. Now, um, also to know that, weirdly enough, hotels are also 12th house. Rape is not vacation. Uh, and Rahu still being in Pisces, we're talking about the collective blind spots, Jupiter with Ketu. Um, so the core of the structures, the core of Capricornian tropically, we think about depth structure or trying to enslave people in debt, or um, like, I'm not saying it's gonna be guillotine, because indeed Saturn Mars can be death by something sharp, or a sharp cut of the head. Now it's not the neck, because the next sign is Venus that rules the neck. So a sharp cut of the head, it's like a sharp cut of the head of something, the head of the deep state, a sharp cut of the head, death by, but it's death, collective death by a sharp cut of the head, for the Godhead. Um, or it can be volcanic eruption, or death by volcanic eruption. So again, Lilith is 2 meters from the galactic center, so we can expect that the feminine will not be subjugated. Now, not being subjugated is also acknowledging, is another thing regarding that then Valgedi, is also acknowledging the infant phase and the fact that the infant cannot consent. So we cannot attribute, how should I say that? We cannot attribute consent to the victims of, but in the cases of people that were born into, let's say, secret societies, we can also not attribute consent to them, which means they never consented to be a part of those secret societies, by and large. But it also means that the people that were harmed by them were never consented. Like I said, it can be volcanic eruption as remediation. Or people dying by magma that makes it no longer economic to violate not just infants in their physical form, but any form of torture is basically regressing people to the infant phase, which is the core of mind control. And think about what would it take to make that no longer economic. Something that is the like of a volcanic eruption, that is immediate death and cannot be escaped, not even in a bunker. I already saw, just think about the fact that, treason cults build A-bombs and then tell us that even with friendly nuclear energy, that the radiation is kind of like okay in a bunker, trusting the devices that were made by people that were initiated through rites of passage where they have to betray. And and then trusting those structures. People believe in that if Israel nukes the entire earth, somehow um, Argentina would be exempt, which is like it's physically impossible. This is showing the damage to the hemispheres. So, um, and so I'm just thinking about all of these things. Yes, of course, it's Saturn hour, so it started in the moon hour, but it's Saturn hour, so it's kind of like realistically appraising the possible doom and gloom, not to speak it into being, but actually to assess what are we dealing with and how can we remediate. Yeah.